So this morning I want to talk to you guys about how to teach our children how to identify safe relationships and obviously unsafe relationships. So I'm talking on a very sensitive topic today, and I will be sharing about sexual abuse prevention. But before I start with that, is the moment that you often mention sexual abuse prevention or sexual abuse, people start to say, okay, it's not really, this isn't my session, it's not applicable to my family, it's not applicable to my situation. You know, I had a cousin once, but it's not close to me. So just as we start off, I want a little bit of audience participation. And as you came in just now for the session, each one received a little number. I would like you to take out that number for me, please. So there was a recent study published in the South African Medical Journal. It was done, they surveyed 9,717 young people. And in that study, they found out that 30% of young people report some kind of sexual abuse. So I want you to say, if you have the number 3 paper, I can ask you just to stand for me a moment. Look at the number on your paper. I've got number 1s, I've got number 2s, and I've got number 3. Can you stand up for me one moment? If your number on your paper is number 3. Because I want us to visually understand, why do we need to talk about this? This is not an isolated incident that happens far away there. 1 out of 3, it means that 1 out of 3 people standing here. 1 out of every 3 of your colleagues. 1 out of every 3 of your friends. 1 out of every 3 of your family members. 1 out of every 3 of your children's friends. So, thank you so much. You can take your seat. So, sexual abuse is a prevalent thing, and it's big and it's in our face, and we cannot as parents think it's not somebody in my circle. But the good news is it's preventable. So in today's session, I'm going to go through 6 sessions or 6 tips that we can do to protect our children against this. So are you ready? Hold on to your horses. There's a lot of information coming through now, but this is essential. If we want to say we want a holistic approach to keep our children safe, this is very much a part of it. So we're going to start off. The first thing is we need to teach our children about sexual abuse. And when you say that, the very first instinct is, I don't want to expose my child to that dark side of the world. I don't want to have a conversation now that awakens things in them that they're not ready for. So very much of what we're doing is, it doesn't have to be. And I'm going to give you even a word-for-word script that you can see. It's a simple conversation that you can have with a toddler even. But before we teach our children about it, I want us to have an understanding what is sexual abuse, because we need to be able to be comfortably speaking about these things if we ever want our children to be comfortable to speak to us. When there's something wrong, you want your child to have the opportunity to say, I want to speak to mommy and daddy. There's something that's bothering me. So we have to understand, and we have to be comfortable talking about it. So there's a definition on your screen. It's basically an interaction between a child and an adult or another child, in which a child is used for sexual stimulation by the perpetrator. This can be touching or non-touching. It can be visual and non-visual. So we're going to quickly look at some myths. One of the first things that we teach children is stranger danger. Beware of the guy with the hoodie in the park with handing out lollipops. That is not our biggest threat. 90% of sexual abuse cases happens in a familiar environment by somebody that is known to the child or the family. We believe abuse is a once-off incident. Oftentimes it's reoccurring and can go on for years if it's not stopped. Abusers are only men. 8 to 15% of sexual abusers are actually women. So you have to start shifting your mind to say, who is the threat here? It's not just one profile, one person. Girls are the only victims of abuse. A study done in the US recently published, they say 1 out of every 6 boys have been sexually molested. And that number is vastly underreported because boys report less than girls. Sexual abuse is all about sexual gratification. That's not true. There's a lot of things that come into play: power, control, manipulation. Offenders are often single. Unfortunately, they are not. They can be married. They can look like prime candidates of society. They can have children of their own. Next, I want to quickly look at the visual characteristics of a sex offender and see how our parental radar is going off here. So, who can help me identify? Who wants to guess? Who on here is a sex offender? Just shout it out. C. Okay. Sorry? H. B. D. Okay. This is a trick question because, in fact, each and every one of these people are known sex offenders. There is no visual profile for a sex offender. Stop looking out to say that guy looks creepy, he's a sex offender, because that's not how we stop this. There are no visual profiles. They do not look in a certain way. It can be any race, any gender, any age. So when we talk about myths when it comes to myths when it comes to sexual abuse, another one is that it's adults. But the reality is 30% of sexual abuse is done by juveniles, which means that in our schools and in our kids' friends and circles, there's abuse taking place. So we're going to quickly, for a small section of my talk, we're just going to touch on peer-to-peer abuse. And that's not the main focus of this talk, but I want you to have knowledge about it so that you can empower yourself to identify what's going on. So peer-to-peer is sexual behavior between children involving coercion, pressure, secrecy, or harm, rather than age-appropriate curiosity. And it usually involves an imbalance of power. What is an imbalance of power? It can be an age difference between children. It can be a maturity difference between children. It can be a size difference. So there's a number of factors that come into play. One thing I do want to add that, when a child harms another child, we're not going to say this child is a predator. But we have to take action and take note of what is happening so that we can intervene appropriately. So we're going to quickly look at some behaviors, concerning behaviors. So when you see a child pressuring or forcing another child, when there are threats, bribes, manipulation, power imbalances, repeated behavior, secrecy, shame, exposure to porn-influenced behavior, children that ignore other people's no boundaries, a child starting to avoid certain children, bullying. A large majority of sexual abuse actually start out as bullying. And then also children who are overly sexualized for their age. All of these things are warning signs. And I want to mention again that this doesn't mean now this child is branded for life. He's a child predator. But it's enough reason for us to get involved to say, how can we help and how can we redirect that? Some high-risk areas that you have to be aware of. Bathrooms is the number one place where peer-to-peer abuse takes place. But any place where there's a change of clothes is risky. Sleepovers, mixed age play, games that involve secrecy of removing of clothes. And I want to quickly stop and throw in a story just about sleepovers, because oftentimes we say, I know the family, I know the friend, but there's a girl, I'm going to just call her Mary for the sake of this presentation. She was about 7, 8 years old, and her family said she can go for a sleepover with a friend, which is also about 7, 8 years old, a girl. And they know the family, they've got a great reputation, there's nothing weird that's a warning light. But this friend that she went to visit had an older brother. But do you know what? The older brother was also known to the family and trusted. But guess what? On the same evening that the little girls were planning a sleepover, the older brother were planning a sleepover, and his friends came and molested the little girl. Be aware where your child is. Be aware Don't assume. Don't say the people are good people. There's so many particles in this that you cannot control. Be aware of sleepovers. Be aware of games where you feel uneasy, and be that parent to step in to say, I want to ask a question. I want to know what's going on here. So I'm going to give you a conversation script that you can have with your child, because our goal is to equip them. And it will start something like this. I want you to know that sometimes grown-ups, or even maybe other kids, people that we know even, might want to do something a little strange. They might want to look or touch your private parts. They might want you to play with your private parts, or they might even want you to look or touch theirs. If anybody is ever doing that, honey, I want you to know that they are breaking a rule, and you can tell me so I can help you. So this is a script by Megan. She's a sexual abuse treatment provider. She wrote an awesome little book. It's called Who's the Boss of My Body? You're welcome to check that out. But this is not an invasive script. This is not something that's going to scar your child for life. But it starts to teach them boundaries and give them language to say what's going on. Tip number 2 is, once now that we understand what sexual abuse is, we need to know what is the grooming process, that we can identify that as parents and also teach our children. We don't want to teach our children just to look out for bad people. We want to teach our children to look out for bad behavior, so that there are things that they can know this is not good. Mommy and Daddy has told me about this. So the first stage of grooming starts by finding a target. So perpetrators, they don't randomly pick children. They pick somebody that can be accessible, that's got vulnerabilities that they can exploit, needs that they can fulfill. And they start a grooming process that victims often says it's like a frog in hot water. It starts slowly and slowly pulling them in. So you can see that there's a list of things that put families at risk, but it's not all-inclusive. You can see there, for example, we talk about low-income families. But guess what? Abuse happens in high-income families as well. So these are just risk factors that help somebody to have access to a child that doesn't have an adult that's close and involved in what they're doing. Then the next step we are going to is where they are gaining trust. So oftentimes, offenders are described as helpful, as kind, as trustworthy. And we need to teach our kids that does not mean safe. If someone is kind, it's not the same as safe. If someone is helpful, it's not the same as safe. And we're going to look at it a little bit later to say, what are safe adults? How does that look? But yes, they start building a strong relationship with the family, gaining trust of the child, of the family, of the community. Oftentimes, groomers don't start grooming the child. They start grooming the gatekeepers. That is your teachers, your children's church staff, aunts, uncles, parents, anybody that's in a position to look out for the safety of the children. They will start first there to gain trust, to gain credibility. These people come with a plan, and they work their way in very much with a strategic long-term goal. It can be somebody that identifies a child of their preference. Many of these predators have a gender and an age preference. And they can find a single mommy with kids in that age range. And they can get married to that child, to that mom, up until the time where the kid's outgrown that age, and they up and leave. You see what I'm saying is they're working with a long-term plan. It's not by accident that you see them popping up in the news as coaches, as volunteers with children. It's intentionally working their way in there to get access to the children that they need. So after they've gained trust, they start to fill a need. To say, what need can I fill? Either in the need of the parents or in the need of the child. Is there a child that's in need of attention, of affirmation? You will remember one of our risk factors is maybe it's a big family. Maybe it's a family with 8 kids. Maybe it's a mom with 2 kids. She's a single mommy and she's just struggling to juggle jobs and kids. And children becomes victims because there's a need. Mommy cannot get you everything. And there's somebody that's so kind enough just to step in and to be that father figure. Just to step in to help mom with transport money. Just to step in and make a difference there. They come calculated and with a plan to get access to kids. So they will look for a need they can fill. The next step is they will start isolating a child. So they will have a special bond with a child. They're separating them from others. They're creating secrecy, starting to undermine their parents. They say, your parents won't understand. This is our little secret. They start emotional manipulation. If you go now, I'll be all alone. You can't do that. You can't tell people what will happen to me. And they start creating that isolation of the child. That can look in many different ways. I want to quickly tell you a story of a young man called Mark, not his real name. He was a swimmer, very average, not anything that you can write home about. And he started to take coaching. He was on the swim class. And then there's a coach that took an interest in him and said he's got so much potential. So he started to work harder, started putting the effort, and he actually became a great swimmer. His performance improved so much. And this coach said, I will do private coaching for him. And his parents were blown away because everybody wanted this famous coach. He was the coach to have. So that gradually he started to isolating and say, okay, we're going to do extra sessions. Before school in the morning, we start swimming. And it did happen. And he started to pull him away slowly but surely from the rest of the swimming team. Then it turned into we're going to do sleepovers and then we can start early in the morning. And little by little, he isolated him until he could molest him and he was separated from the group. So that is just one example of how that can work. The next step is they start to erode boundaries and introduce children to rule breaking. And they do that via cigarettes, alcohol, pornography, sometimes crude language. And they will drop something that's just not quite socially acceptable to see how the child responds, to make them used to that language, to make them used to that behavior. They start with accidental nudity. Walking in, letting their child walk in while they're getting dressed. Start exposing themselves, testing that boundary, seeing where is this child? How do they respond? Do they run and tell them, they start accidental touching, can be cuddles, can be hugs, tickles. And slowly but surely that boundary is getting pushed and pushed and pushed. A lot of these things are used, first of all, to break rules, to make a child used to rule breaking, but now it turns into blackmail as well. Because now that person gave a child access to pornography. Now they have a secret. Say, we can't tell mom or dad because you know what? We don't want them to find out that you're watching naughty movies. No, remember this is our little secret. We wouldn't want mom to know that you're smoking. So they introduce rule breaking as a form of control. And you remember earlier when I mentioned the different motivations that come into play? Power, control, manipulation. You see it running through all these. And then one of the things is direct messaging. And here I want to stop for a moment and I want to ask you as parents, please, 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 don't let adults communicate directly with your kids. As a children's pastor, I see that so often and it breaks my heart. When I reach out to a parent to say, listen, we just want to follow up with Johnny or we want to invite the child to the Connect group. Can I add you as a parent's details on our broadcast list that you get the invitation for Connect group? And they would say, no, I'd rather that you speak directly to my child. And I say, don't do that. Don't do that because you're teaching your child that they can have private conversations with adults that's got nothing to do with mom and dad. If you can, keep them away from their devices as long as you can. But don't open the door for adults to come and speak to your children directly. Then, once the abuse has taken place, we have secrets, guilt, fear, manipulation, shame. All these things come into play to keep and maintain control. Don't tell your parents, you don't want to do that because you'll get me into trouble. You know, if you tell somebody, I'm gonna go away for a long time, and kids are stuck in bondage because they don't want to break up their family. They don't want to cause disruptions. Maybe mom's boyfriend was the main financial support for the family. Now I can't tell because then mom will sit out without finances again. So they use different methods to gain control, to keep control. So we need to teach our children, beware of dangerous behavior. Not people, behavior. What does it look like when somebody is doing something that's wrong? When can you talk to me about it? When do you feel uneasy in your heart about it? So some few grooming red flags that you can look out for is when an adult wants to spend time alone with your child, when there's excessive messaging, gift giving, favoritism, boundary breaking, a child starts to become secretive, withdrawn, or a child wants to avoid somebody specific. Take note of those things and inquire and ask, why is this? Why does my child not want to go over to the family function anymore? Why does the child not want to go with us when we go visit our family friends anymore? So that's our first two tips, is teaching children about sexual abuse, teaching children about grooming behavior, and then we're going to say teaching children about body boundaries. So body boundaries is basically everything that's covered by a swimsuit. We want to tell them that is off limits for other people. And there's different ways to do that. And it can start very easily even as you are potty training your children, to start to teach them that they have a body that's separate, that they are responsible for, and other people have their bodies that they're responsible for. You're going to wipe your bum, you're growing up into a big boy, and you have to take care of your body. You cannot expose yourself in public, you have to take care of your body. And guess what? Other people, they have to touch their own private parts, and they have to take care of their own body to make sure that it's not exposed. You have a body, I have a body. There's a boundary. Teach them to say, naked games are never okay. Teach them that even for older kids, as you're having a sex talk with them, teach them about how sex is supposed to be. It's never with a family member. Teach them the context of how it was designed to be. Teach them to never send pictures to anybody. Next, we want to teach them about secrets. Secrets, and a lot of the abuse is in the secrecy. It's not only in a physical abuse, but it's in the secrecy. Only 10% of children will actually report abuse because of the power that abusers have over them. There's a lot of trauma in the secret because they start to believe the lies from the abuser, to say this is your fault. You asked for this. And they start to manipulate them that they don't speak out. Even abuse that happened years and years ago can still have an impact, and that person can still be afraid to speak. Talking is part of recovery. And because we believe this lie that our society shouldn't talk about these things, we shouldn't talk about it in our family, there's no healing and there's no restoration. Let's teach our children about secrets. What are good secrets? Surprises, that there's an end date, there's a celebration, you can share that with safe adults. Some things are private. Yes, we do have private things. That's not for everybody, but it's not hidden from your parents. When does a secret become an unsafe secret, a bad secret? That's when they say there's things that you may never tell anyone. Things secrets that give you a scary or a sad feeling. Those are secrets that we have to teach our children. They are bad. Tip number 5. So what do we do if our children start opening up to us? What do we do if they start to communicate that something has happened? So first of all, why don't kids talk? There's victim blaming, guilt, embarrassment, shame, afraid of not being believed, afraid of the consequences, disrupting the family. Maybe they don't have a language to describe. You remember one of the key features I mentioned earlier to say what is a vulnerability where predators prey on? If they like to abuse children that's preschool or children with special needs. Why is that? Because they don't have the vocab to say what's happening to me. They don't have a way to express what's happening to them. Maybe there's a family culture of secret keeping. Anybody in the family, we don't talk out about anything. Nothing. And that abuse continues from generation to generation to generation to generation. So how do we not respond? We never ask them, but why didn't you just say no? Why didn't you run out when it happened? Because what happens is, what are our big responses to fear? Who can tell me? The two main ones that we all know, fight and flight. But there's a third response that's very real, and it's called freeze. And oftentimes, survivors of sexual abuse report that they were frozen. Fear gripped them that they couldn't move their bodies. The body felt heavy. They were stuck. They just sat there and let this happen to them, and they had no way to control the situation. So never ask a child, why? Because immediately you're blaming the victim. But why didn't you say something? Never get emotional. Don't have hysterical outbursts, crying and screaming. Because a child, when they become vulnerable to talk about this, they are so careful. They're gauging your every response because it takes a lot of guts to talk. Don't ask all the detail. Establish the basic facts. And then you get professionals involved. And why do we say that? Is because oftentimes, as people interrogate the child, they start to close up and they start to sometimes downplay it and start to feel, no, I've made a mistake. Look how angry dad is. He looks like he's going to kill someone. I shouldn't have said something. And by interrogating, you're actually making it more difficult for the proper forensic procedures to fall into place there. Don't just jump up and confront the perpetrator immediately. And never promise a child that I won't tell anyone. So what do you do if a child comes to you and say, I want to tell you a secret, but you may never tell anyone? I often get that as a children's pastor, and I tell them, I would love to hear what you want to share with me, but I want to tell you, if somebody is hurting you, I cannot keep silent, and I will speak out, and we will get the right people involved to help you. And you can know that I've got your back and I'm supporting you, but we're going to tell the right people. Don't say, my daughter asked me, please no, not to tell anyone, and then I leave it there. We have a duty to report. By law, any adult who's informed, even if you suspect that there's child abuse happening, you have to report it to the authorities. You may not keep it silent. This is the law. Offenders remain in power. Remember, half of the abuse is in the manipulation and the power. And as long as they can keep you quiet, they are still in control. We've got people that's sitting for 30, 40, 60 years and who's never told anyone. And that person is still in control, manipulating this person. They live in fear and shame because of what that animal has done to them. Break the silence so that they can get healing, that they can get help, that there can be restoration. The moment that you start talking, it means that guy is no longer in control of my life. I'm breaking free from his grip. We have to allow the law to take its course. So it's not me that's taking that guy to court. It's our criminal system that's getting into motion, and they need to take their course. Protection laws are in the favor of the child. So even if you report something and it turns out there was nothing, if you acted in the best interest of the child, you are still protected by law, because our child protection laws are there for the benefit of the children. Then tip number 6. So how do we practically prevent this? How can we practically equip our kids and hopefully avoid this altogether? The number one thing, the most important thing, and it's something I see in all our talks here, is to have a relationship with our children, to have a daily time of connection, to know what's in their hearts. If you don't give your child attention and affirmation, somebody will. It might be a 16-year-old boy taking your daughter on a date. It might be an adult that's looking for opportunity. And I don't say this because I want to come down condemning, because I think we're all parents and we're all tired sometimes. There's a look my wife and myself, we give each other at 7:45 in the evening. And he says, I love these kids, but I just need to get them to bed now. This has been a long day. I cannot take one more fight between the two of them. This needs to end now. You know, we're all there. But we do have to be involved in their lives and have a relationship there. Know what's going on in your child's life. Who are their friends? Where do they hang out? What activities are they doing? If your child is isolated, see how you can get them part of a community. There's a perpetrator that told in an interview, he's a piano teacher. And he says he would always wait till 20 minutes into the lesson, because he knows the parents drop off the child and they go, and sometimes they come back because they forget something. And 20 minutes into the lesson, he's got free reign, because people are creatures of habit. They go for the mocha, go quickly do an errand, whatever they want to do. He says if there was any risk for him, he would have not done it. But he knows people are so predictable. So be that parent to be involved and pop in unannounced. Go to the soccer practice. Pop in, come half an hour earlier. Be the one to ask questions. When your child said they're doing a secret dance at ballet, go and speak to the teacher. Say, listen, I want to know, what is the secret dance that you are doing? Because in my family, we don't do secrets. We don't keep things from our parents. Oh, we were planning something for Mother's Day. And so, okay, no problem. I want to tell you why I'm here, because we teach our children not to keep secrets from us. So be involved and ask the questions. Be that parent that's sometimes unpopular, because it's your child. And if you don't fight for them, no one is going to do that. So be involved and know what's going on in their lives. Identify safe adults. So here, how does a safe adult look? It's someone that can respect our boundaries. It's somebody that's transparent with the parents. It's somebody that does not ask for secrets. It's somebody that accepts a no. And it's someone that doesn't try to get a child isolated and separated. And we have to teach our children to look out for these things. They must know that there are people that ask for the opposite, that ask for secrecy, that ask for isolation, that will ignore your no's. Next step is we have to give them a voice. We have to have children that can feel free to express what's going on in the inside. Don't tell a child, you're going with Uncle Tommy now. And remember, do whatever he says. Can you imagine now that child sits in a compromising position and all that he hears is mom's words that said, do whatever he says? Huh? How about you will kiss grandma on the lips? I don't want to. You're teaching that child that they don't have a boundary. Give them the option to say, if you want to, you can give grandma a hug or a kiss. Don't force them to do something that they're uncomfortable with. And then later on, you ask yourself, why did you not say something when it was uncomfortable? Because we can teach our children in the wrong way concerning this. Open conversations. Have open conversations. And I heard that in our first 2 amazing talks. That conversation with our children, it's so priceless. That they must have the freedom to come and talk to us. Don't think you can never talk to your child and say, one day when you are sexually abused, come and talk to me. It starts with the little things. How was your day? What was exciting in your day? Tell me, what did you and your friends do? Get involved there. That they have a habit. Daily I talk to my parents about what's going on in my life. You have to model sometimes to say no. Mm-hmm. Who here has difficulty in saying no to people? People pleasers. Anybody? You just want to make the whole world happy. You just want to do whatever it takes to make sure everybody's sorted. And in the meantime, you are cracking up because you can't live with all the burdens, and you volunteered now to bake cake there, and you will go and visit this one, and you have no boundaries yourself. We have to teach our children to say, sometimes I have a boundary and I can say no. And I want you to be able to say no. Digital safety, I'm not going to go a lot into this. For our previous 2 years, we've had excellent speakers. We've got great sessions talking about digital safety, so you can find the links on our YouTube. It's over 2.5 hours, I think, of digital safety that you can go revisit there. But please be involved. Know what's going on in your child's device. Know what's going on in their lives. Talk to them openly about what is sexting. I'm going to see, I have time for one quick story, just to illustrate how grooming behavior works. There was a youth pastor who identified a boy who started to gain their trust. He then identified a girl in the group, and he sent the girl a phishing link for her Instagram, and he reset his password that he can actually log into her official Instagram page. And he started to reach out to this boy and befriending this boy. And not long, he started to send nude pictures of the girl, which wasn't really the girl because she didn't even know her account was being used. And in return, the boy started to send nude pictures back. Then gloves came off and he started to make demands. I want you to do this and this and this on camera. Otherwise, I'm going to send these pictures to everybody that you know, your friends, your family. I even know which church you go to. I can see all your information. And this boy doesn't know what to do. And he's too ashamed to go to his parents. Who does he turn to? His youth pastor. And say, Pastor, what must I do? What must I do? And obviously this youth pastor is the one instigating everything. And he says, you know what? Maybe just give them what they want. Maybe they will leave you alone. How vulnerable position was that boy placed in? How deceptive is the mind of a groomer? It's not by accident. They work with a plan and they work with a purpose to get to our children. So that, by the way, is sextortion, is when you demanding money or videos or whatever because of your nude pictures that you put on the internet of yourself. So teach children this. Tell them once a picture is out on the internet, it's out. You're not getting it back. So think twice before you put anything on there. Teach our children to regulate body signals. Tell them there's an oh feeling. That feeling when it's basically a fear response, but you have to teach them how does that feel, and you have to teach them, you have to model that. So maybe when you're driving and somebody cuts in front of you and you have to hit on the brakes, use that as opportunity. Say, yo, I've had that feeling. You remember I talked to you a couple of weeks ago? Daddy's feeling that right now. My heart is like beating out of my chest. I was so close from an accident. That feeling, even my hands are sweaty right now. Teach them what does it feel like, and teach them to say, we get rid of that feeling by talking about it. Come talk to us. If something makes you feel, come talk to us. Physical feelings, I want to say, can be very confusing. And it's part of the control and the shame that comes with sexual abuse, because your body's natural response reaction sometimes leads to arousal or can be seen as enjoyment. Now that child walks around and saying, maybe I liked it, or maybe I caused it, or maybe I was the one to do that. So our physical feelings can be confronting or can be confusing. So we have to teach them, what is that feeling? When do you talk to mommy about it? What are the things? Otherwise, I say, no, it was nice. But you know what? Before it was nice, what was the feeling that was there? Let's look at some behavioral changes. All these things that you see on their own is not to say a child is being sexually abused. But each and every one of these is a reason for concern. It's a reason for investigation. It's a reason for us to ask a question. It's a reason for us to initiate a conversation with our children. Find out what's going on, because there might be something that's deeper behind that. So as I come to the conclusion, I want to just put it out there, and I want to say, if there's anybody here that has for years believed that they should be ashamed, I want to tell you today, there's no shame on you. The shame is on the abuser. I want to tell you to break the silence, to talk about it, go see somebody. Let's step up as a community and say we will not be silenced anymore. I'm going to be the one in my family that's going to speak up. Even if it didn't happen to me, I'm going to say something, because I'm a responsible adult and this thing is not going to live in my family. Be the one to make a difference. Be the one to set out to say, we're bringing change to my household, to my family, to my community. 1 out of 3 is not an acceptable stat for me, and I'm not going to stand for that. Be the one to listen. Be the one to hear what your kids are saying. Be the one to stand up. Sexual abuse is real and it's relevant, and we can't hide away from it. But it can also be preventable. It can also be prevented. And I want to encourage you, let's be alert. Let's be awake and prevent that. So parents, you can reduce the risk by being aware, being involved, and teaching your children the skills that's needed. Thank you so much.